play to win, no fear to give. I feel but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best on trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Oh, play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win.
Welcome, everyone, to the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast and Show. I'm John McGlynn. You can find me in the Twitter machine at JohnMcGlynn75. Today, I had the pleasure of talking with the co-host, with the mo-host, JT, Justin Taylor, at JT Orange, and Steve Falco. We'll talk to Steve about some stuff in his life, his career outside of fantasy football, his hobbies, commissioner questions, some settings he prefers and leagues he plays in, some NFL news, some rumors, and then we'll review some trades that went down in Mighty McGlynn fantasy leagues. And then we'll break down a team to see if it's a rebuild or a remodel and get them back on track get the team back on track, see how it should be handled in order to get somebody back in a either rebuild or kind of remodel situation and find out what Steve and what JT think are the best ways to do it. So.
McGlynn is in. I repeat, McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. This is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with your host, John McGlynn.
Was that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, yo, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number one. Hey, yo, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
Thanks for joining in here, everyone. I got the nice little weekend, my last 4 days off from my 4-on, 4-off rotating 12-hour shifts garbage schedule. I was able to watch the women's Final Four championship. It was a pretty good game. It ended up being a blowout at the end. I like to see that the girls score over 100 points sometimes. That's some good team chemistry right there. Then we watched the men's Final Four. I went to the White Sox opener with my two boys. We drank some beers and watched the White Sox get actually pounded by Koufax, serving up meatballs. But we made a good day of it, and then we went out after to watch the men's March Madness. None of my squares hit, so I have to go back to work every day now. So it is what it is. So that's it. JT, you had some interest in the men's Final Four, right? What'd you do the last couple of days?
Yeah, I went down to Houston to check out the game. Florida was in, brother-in-law went to Florida Atlantic. So he's in the Hall of Fame there, number 4 all-time leading scorer in Owls basketball history. So we got some pretty good tickets for the semifinal game sitting in the FAU section. And then I also spent 2 years at San Diego State, many of my college stops along the ways over the years. So I had some Aztec love there too. So great game between them. Buzzer beater by San Diego State, which was unbelievable. My sister and brother-in-law were crushed. They were so mad that Florida Atlantic didn't win that game. I thought they had it. They were winning the whole time. And then I was hoping the Aztecs would keep it close in the national championship, and they got blown out. So I had a bad feeling it was going to happen. I didn't think they could had enough offense to stick with UConn, and they did not. So I had some crazy overnight flights there and back. So just trying to get recovered as I'm finally home and got a little bit of sleep because I didn't get a lot of sleep this weekend. But it was a good time in Houston.
Steve, tell me about yourself. What have you been doing the last couple of days? How did you spend your weekend last the March Madness tournament, all that kind of stuff?
You know, I was just thinking about that, John, as you brought that up. I kind of a hot take isn't what I did, but I'm not a March Madness fan. So I haven't watched a lick of March Madness. I don't think we're not going to get into it big time, but I don't think it's the best form of who a winner can be based on the tournament, just being a one and done. I know it provides a lot of excitement, but people get all into the brackets and then you brought your bracket bust and so not really for me. I'm trying to think what I did over the weekend.
Combed your hamster, like
nothing really out of the ordinary, honestly. Just I think visit with some friends and getting involved with some videos and editing videos. So basically, about nothing too extraordinary recently.
I wish I knew what to edit videos. I wish you could edit this one because I already messed it up about 5 times since we started. So. One day I'll get into editing and all that stuff too, but one day I'll just get my intro right. I'll be able to just come in here and do an intro correctly and not mess it up and say stupid shit like the whole time. Like it's gonna happen one time. Not this show. It already ruined it, but maybe I'll have J2 do the intro from now on because I'm terrible at it. But
well, we're working on it. We're working on it.
I believe in you, John. I believe in you.
Thanks. Well, it's only been 72 shows, so you kind of figure I should have figured it out by now, but whatever. All right, Steve, first of all, tell me about yourself, where the Twitter machine can find you, and what you do in the fantasy football world that makes people want to follow you.
Yeah, so you can follow me at Steve_FOP. That's my personal account. My co-host and I decided to get into the podcast world, I guess, as of last season. So right around August, September. So we call it the Front Office Pros. So you can follow us there on Twitter, Front Office Pros, as well as YouTube. Hey, Dustin. Dustin is a common guest on our show. Dustin's great. If you haven't had him, you got to have him on one of your shows.
He was on our show. He's awesome.
Oh yeah. I know. Just a few weeks ago he was on. But so yes, you can follow me there. Other than that, honestly, I'm not really that involved in social media. But for Front Office Pros, we try to cover a variety of topics. Dynasty mainly, but we also talk about IDP. Salaries and contracts. Superflex. Those type of things. So we do cover redraft at times, but we're trying to specialize more so in the dynasty, IDP, and salaries and contract space.
So tell me about the outside of life of fantasy football for you. Like, what do you do for a living, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so for most of my career, I've worked in human resources, so that's what I've been doing. As far as life, I enjoy sports, board games, just spending time with people. I'm an extrovert, so I get energy just hanging out with others, talking on the phone, getting together. So anything like that, I enjoy.
What's your favorite board game?
Right now, my favorite board game is a new game I bought, and it's probably not a game that most will have heard before. It's called Rival Restaurants. So basically, you have your own restaurant. There's a basic and a gourmet recipe, and then you have to go to different shops. There's like a meat shop and a veggie shop, and you have to take turns of where you're going to go. But then there's bartering, and it's fun.
JT, look at that. You got a board game for your life.
I was going to say, this sounds like every day for me.
You might not like it. It might be too close to home, but it's just a lot of fun.
Did you ever play a game called Axis and Allies?
I did a long time ago. It was a kind of a form of Risk, right? It was kind of
it's Risk on steroids, is what.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. You like it?
Me and my buddies used to drink. It was for more of a reason just for us to drink beer when we were underage at each other's houses. Say we were playing a board game for 14 hours and just get hammered. But it ended up being me and my kids kind of started playing it together. It became something that it takes 2 hours to set the game up. Let alone play the game too. And if you follow the rules with like transports and battleships and tanks and all that stuff like that, the game would take absolutely forever. But it's my favorite board game by far. It's like you said, it's Risk, but it's Risk on steroids. I wish they would make like one more better version of that game if it's possible. I don't know if it'd be too complex at that point in time, but it's a World War II scenario game, and there's two axes and three allies. You play back and forth, but it is by far my favorite board game, just for how long it takes. And we've played more than 24 hours in a row at some points in that game.
Wow.
So it ain't like Candyland where you roll the dice and somebody wins in 10 minutes, that kind of deal.
Now, one quick suggestion for you, if you like that, one game I also really like, although it can take a lot of hours, but it's a lot of fun. It's called Diplomacy. Mm-hmm. So basically, it's a similar concept of like a war game, and it's based off of World War II, but all the moves are based on, there's no dice or anything like that. It's all based on negotiation. So you like talk with the other people who are the other countries, and then like you make your moves in secret, and then you announce your moves. But then you might find out, like I talked to JT, and it's like, all right, JT, all right, I'm going to support you moving into Bulgaria. And then I tell you like, well, like, let's go, I'll help you support JT or whatever. And then the move comes, and then you find out I end up going with JT. And then it's like, oh, wait, I thought we were working together. So it's pretty interesting.
I need to find a game that I can outsmart my kids in still. They're getting all, they're in one's 26, one's 22. They're probably smarter than I am at this point in time in my life. So I need to find something that's new and easier to get out of, be able to outsmart them. So it's becoming harder and harder as I get older, but I'll have to figure that out. Tell me about a day outside of fantasy football for you guys. Like what do you, besides what's your favorite hobby kind of thing?
I mean, like obviously, like fantasy football and NFL is a given hobby, right? Like I'm on this podcast, but other than that, like I mentioned sports, like I manage a softball team, 2 teams. So I play softball, tennis, basketball, I'll pick up, as far as that goes. So I enjoy playing sports and, like I said, just, going to get a grab to eat, and just being able to talk about life and, what's happening in the world or whatever. I'm usually an open book as far as conversations.
Yes, sir. When did you start playing fantasy football? Are you more of a redraft dynasty or like best ball guy? Like what's your favorite?
Yeah. I want to say I started, I don't know the official date, but I want to say I started in around, like right before high school. So like 2007, 2008, I want to say is when I started. So, and I was exclusively redraft for that whole time. Now I'm a little bit of a unique person when it comes to fantasy, is that I do not like snake drafts at all. I primarily play auction, and I've played auction for 10 plus years. So a lot of what I did was redraft auction for a majority of the time. And then probably within the past few years, 3 or 4 years now, I've been in Dynasty. So I'm in a few Dynasty leagues. My favorite league being a Dynasty IDP salary cap league. That's my favorite. And then best ball, not pure best ball. I'm co-managing a team with Dustin actually, and that's a Dynasty best ball league. So it has a best ball element to it. But I guess I do have one. I have that and then one redraft best ball that I started last year with my college buddies.
Huge fan of the auction leagues. I'm not, like I said, as I said before, I'm not very good at them because I'm too impatient. But at the same time, I love the aspect of auction leagues. I just wish I could have the patience. Me and JT drafted one auction league together, and at the whole time JT's like, wait, hold on, wait, and I think we drafted pretty well, but it just sucks how fast your money goes, and when you're not like, and when you draft guys who you think are a good value, the players you could have got at way better value later on. It's like I passed up on I could have had like 9 guys on my roster for the price I paid for one dude. And it's like, man, it was Christian McCaffrey for like $200, which is $220, something like that, which is good out of $1,000 budget. That's still a good buy. But man, I really could have just passed on him and kept getting Chris Godwin and DJ Moore and all the rest of these players that I like on my team. And it's such a hard concept to grab, sometimes. Yeah,
I think the thing that bothers me about snake drafts is I don't want to be told what I have to do. So like if I'm like let's say I want the number 1 pick. Like last year, I wanted them 1 pick and I wanted Jonathan Taylor, but I got the 10. Like, I'm not getting Jonathan Taylor. I could try everything I can to try to acquire him, and that person's going to be like, nah, like, I'm good. So for me, like, having the autonomy to say, hey, if you want to have Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey on your team and then a bunch of scrubs, that's your strategy. So to me, I feel that's kind of one of my more pet peeves on the industry. It's so ADP and snake focused. I wish that there would be more people that would do auction and talk about it, because I feel like if you did a live auction, there's nothing better. I don't think I would. I can't see why you'd go back to a snake. But you say you like snakes, so there are some people out there.
I like the idea of the auction that you have, like you said, you can go any strategy, any route you want to go. Where that's the biggest problem with the snake is you can. Within a couple guys, you can figure out who everybody's taking. But like in the auction draft, you never know what everybody's strategy is, and all the strategies can be different. And your strategy can be different year to year. I've had years where in my auction keeper league, I'm holding out. I'm not going to take any of the big guys. I'm going to see if I can get everybody in the middle and just have a really deep team. And I've had it years where I did that and it worked out. Then I had years where I tried to wait and everybody else tried to wait at the same time. And I didn't get those good deals because everybody kind of held back. And the deals were on the other end where the high price guys, they just got them really cheaper because everyone decided they were going to kind of hold on and not spend their money early. So that is why I like the auction league. And I am in a couple auction leagues. But it just gives so much more strategy, so much more option. Like you said, if you want JT, you go out and get him. You just spend as much as you want, and that's part of your basis. So I like the idea you can get anybody. You're not just locked in to going, oh, well, I'm the 12, so I'm going to get, whoever's ADP 12 this year in fantasy. So I do love that about auction. And I was going to ask you about your IDP salary league. Do you guys sign guys to contracts? Is it based off their real life contract? Because I'm in an IDP salary league. That's one of my favorite leagues. And I always like to see how everybody else does theirs.
Yeah. So for the salary cap league, yeah, you are able to, re-sign players. So we do right now, all the stuff that we do is manual, a lot, there really isn't a lot out there that I have found as far as platforms are concerned that can really support that. I know some leagues, like you mentioned, they'll do it based on the real life salary. But it's not really an apples to apples, especially from a defensive perspective, especially the cornerback position. That one's like the most glaring one, where Jalen Ramsey's getting paid like 17, 18 million. And in most IDP leagues, cornerbacks are forgotten. So we don't do it based on real life contracts. It's just based on, contracts that we come up with and that you sign.
Yeah, that's how mine is. We just do a signed contract. It's almost like an auction where you bid guys with their contracts, and you can kind of until you hit your salary cap. I'm in a hockey league that is actual contract based, and that's a whole nother world. It's off their real contracts. It's a little easier in hockey than it is in football. But yeah, I use Reality Sports Online. I don't know if you've ever checked them out.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
But that's where we do our salary IDP league. And every league, you kind of adjust it a little bit. They kind of have rules on RSO on how basically you're allowed to set things up. But the way we do is we have like a 53-man roster. We do every position. So you have defensive tackle, defensive end, linebacker, safety, cornerback, all that. But we do it like that. And then you have 9 contracts, 4-year contracts, 9 3-year contracts, 9 2-year contracts. And then everybody else you can sign to a 1-year minimum deal. Or, you can throw out 21 million 1 year for a guy if you want. But I like it because it kind of throws guys back in the mix every year. And then it's like you have about – you can, again, different strategies. There's teams where you can build it up where you say, I'm going to sign everybody to huge 1-year deals and then just rebuild my whole team next year. Or, hey, I can get to sign this guy to a 4-year deal. Draft picks are totally slotted in the price where you draft them, like the real NFL draft. And so that's another thing where like moving back in the draft sometimes makes more sense because you're getting a guy for cheaper. As opposed to like in regular fantasy, you're like, why would I ever want to trade back usually unless I'm getting like 3 or 4 extra picks? But it makes sense in there. It's a really cool format that I don't know a lot of people play on. But I always try to mention that when anybody talks about doing IDP or tries to do about salary cap league, I always think that's really fun style because it is it is a dynasty league, but you lose guys to get new guys back all the time. And you can, we just added a new thing where you can add a franchise tag to one guy a year. And same thing as NFL, it's like top 10% of whatever the player salaries are. And then you can actually re-sign a guy that's a rookie that you took in the first round. You can sign him to a 4-year extension. So it gives the people. But it's a really fun league. And again, because it's IDP, the builds are so different. You see teams that are loaded on offense, but their defense isn't very good. And we've had teams that win it, and people are like, how did they win with that offense? It's because their defense was just so dominant, and they just needed the offensive guys to be okay. They didn't need to be great. So I always like to hear when somebody else has played in a league like that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm with you 1,000%. And actually similar settings, right? So we actually have absolutely, Dustin, we would. We actually have also defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, corner, safety, the whole shebang. So same idea. And honestly, it makes the 2 aspects that I would want to comment on, right? first the rookie draft, it becomes so much more fun because now you're talking about guys like Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, right? They're in the mix too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are only just thinking about your offensive players, but then you throw in the defense as well, makes the draft so much more interesting. And then with the salary cap component, you know, I really believe that it makes Dynasty a much better experience because you've seen now, and at least what I can tell from the trend, is you have these Dynasty leagues starting up. And I think actually, from what I could hear, a lot of them started up during that COVID time. But what would happen is people go all out, and then there's a ton of orphans. But with the salary cap, just like the NFL, even if you're a really good team, you drafted really well, eventually you're not going to be able to afford those guys. So those guys end up going into free agency. So then you've got free agency on top of that. We're able to sign guys. So, you know, you really feel like you're a GM. I think that's part of the reason why I really like fantasy football in general. It's all the strategy that goes into it. I'm never going to be a GM of, you know, my favorite team. So this is the next best thing. And it's a lot of fun.
Dustin says Steve and JT about to become BFFs over their contract leagues. I played in a contract league before, and they are fun. Don't get me wrong, but they're so damn hard because just when you got your team right where you want it, all the contracts are up. And if you want to re-sign Saquon, or if you want to re-sign, you know, Josh Allen, or if you want to re-sign Patrick Mahomes, it's like 1.5 times their salary, and you're already in salary cap, you know, hell to begin with. Your team's awesome. And now everybody in the league is like, yeah, okay, well, you're just going to have to drop them because nobody's going to trade you shit for them, you know, or these talk about bad trade offers. When they know that they got you by the short and curlies because somebody's gonna be gone off your roster, the trade offers you get like 2/3 in 2025 for Patrick Mahomes, because it's like, man, what do I do? I'm gonna have to drop him anyway. Like, everybody knows this stuff. It is so hard. That is another. Contract leagues are just not for me because they're such a pain in the ass, man.
See, but that's the good thing when you could trade. Like, I made a trade this last offseason where I traded away Deontay Johnson to a guy who really needed wide receivers. I was pretty loaded. Well, part of the reason I was willing to give him up is I only had one more year on him. So I was like, I'm going to lose him after this year anyway. Can I get some picks? And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up trading him and like Devin Bush, who had another year on his contract, and something for like a second or third rounder. Well, that seems like a terrible pick, but I think I got 2/3 out of it. Well, I went in and, you know, I'm going to have those third-round picks are going to be great picks, especially because it's IDP. So there's going to be plenty of guys available. I mean, I got like Michael Pittman in the third round in this league a couple years ago. I mean, I've got some really good value in the third round. So that's why I like it. It does make the draft, and people trade a lot more in this draft than any of my other leagues. People get in there and people are making trades for draft picks. They're moving back, they're moving out, they're moving in from next year. And even in the late rounds, 4th, 5th rounders, people are trading picks for the next year to slide back into the draft. So there's guys that still like. I just think it's so much more active that way. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think when it comes to, real quick, I think you're right. Because of that pressure that's being applied to everybody, trades happen way more frequently. And honestly, trades are some of the most fun aspects of the fantasy football experience. So like you said, if I know I got a guy on one year left and I know I'm not going to sign him at the deadline, I'm shopping him around. But if I get to keep him for the next 10, 15 years, what incentive do I have, you know, to trade a guy? So it puts more pressure on you to have to make those moves. And I think it ends up being a lot of fun.
So Steve and JT, you talk about all these complex leagues and all these salary caps. Now, what's your favorite site to play fantasy football on? Like, is it, you had mentioned RSO? I don't know. Some people are NFL guys. So JT, what's your favorite site?
I play on a little bit of everything. I mostly play on Sleeper as far as the easy ones go, but I play on a lot of MFL sites that have just been on there forever, and a couple leagues I run on there. I try to stick to those two along with the RSO. I'm an I hate to say it, usually Yahoo guy. I always have problems with my Yahoo site. I always have problems logging in. I always have problems with the auction drafts. Every year we're in a league that we did auction drafts. I always had problems with that league. We switched to Sleeper last year. It was great. And everybody was like, oh, you're right. 3 years I tried to talk to these guys to get into Sleeper. And they finally moved to Sleeper, and we did the auction draft on Sleeper, and it was so much smoother. So I try to do that, but if I can, I try to get on MLF or Sleeper. Sleeper is by far the easier one if you use your phone all the time. If you're on a computer and you're used to MLF, I think it's easy, but I know anyone who's never used it before always struggles because it's so complicated.
Steve?
Yeah, when it comes to me, I don't really feel like there's the ideal platform. What JT and I were talking about. I have actually and I don't know this fully, but from the people that I hear that end up playing in these contract leagues, a lot of times, a lot of the contract stuff ends up being done like on Google Sheets or Excel documents, to really kind of recreate the kind of the experience they want. So the way we do it right now is through Fantrax, and then we kind of have a manual process kind of with that. But as far as the other leagues, I've been in an ESPN league for a long time. I recently went over to Sleeper as well. So for the simple leagues, I think Sleeper does provide a lot of extra customization, and it looks really nice. So I think that's a lot of the reason why people like Sleeper. I'm with you, JT. I'm not a Yahoo fan. And I'm not really a big CBS fan either. I've used them for fantasy baseball, but I did try once for football, and it didn't really go so well. So those are the ones that are coming to mind. But as of right now, I currently use ESPN, Fantrax, and Sleeper.
Yeah, I've always been an ESPN guy, so I switched over to Sleeper, and for a couple of years it was kind of like, Sleeper's better than ESPN, but they're pretty close. And ESPN has made zero improvements to their site in the last 37 years. So Sleeper has done this, done that, and it's taken over the game as far as I'm concerned. There is no other site to use besides Sleeper nowadays, unless you have something where you have to use a spreadsheet on the side. Then there's more sophisticated sites, but just for the normal league, normal player, 99.7% of fantasy ball players would probably just use Sleeper and be super happy with it. So
they've definitely taken a lot of people over. I think more and more people are migrating over there. And I definitely wouldn't use NFL.com. NFL.com is not good either.
So I saw Ryan McDowell was doing the DLF mocks today. And so John Hogan's probably going to start doing it too. Their DLF has been notoriously been on MFL for all their mocks. And today I saw Ryan McDowell had one in Sleeper. So I'm like, hey, man, it's a sign of the times. This is because those guys are, ride or die MFL, so. When they start doing mocks on Sleeper too, it's definitely taken over, of course.
Well, yeah, in the MFL, I have some leagues that are specifically geared towards certain things, like say Star Wars or comic book heroes. MLF's the best because you can get everything customized as far as the site design and names and everything. So that for those types of leagues, MLF I think is still superior. But yeah, if you're going to be in a simpler, easier league, can't get any easier than Sleeper. And I'm on a million ESPN ones, but I keep trying to get guys to move off just because they just have so little that they adjust that you can adjust and move. This makes it difficult. It just bothers me. Simple adjustments they could have made over the years, they haven't, and Sleeper does them. And so far, every league I've talked to go into going to Sleeper has absolutely said, oh, this is way better. I don't know why we didn't do this before. So
as far as the commissioner is concerned, myself, I wish that, like we said, there's no perfect. Steve, like you had said, there's no perfect site. If Sleeper could somehow enter the commissioner, how do you call it? The commissioner settings that my fantasy league has on their site, because I like the tiered points for everything. I like Sleeper only has they have a decent set of options. It's better than ESPN, but the MFL as a commissioner, you can write sips out of a water bottle as points. How many times your grandma waved you from the stands kind of thing as points. I wish that Sleeper had more options. They're way better than some of the other sites, and I do not like Yahoo at all. But Sleeper is really, really good, but they still have, I hope they don't stop developing like ESPN kind of dropped the ball and stopped everything. I hope they just keep going. And they're not like, for ESPN to be the greatest the
worldwide leader
sports, the world leader of sports, they are really dropping the ball on their site. You figure somebody like that would have the best site, nobody can even touch it, but it's absolute garbage, So
yeah, they kind of feel like the Kodak of fantasy sports. They just feel like we've got it and we don't need to make any changes. But as far as my fantasy league, never played on it, but I agree. Their biggest calling card is customization. You have so many options to customize. I feel like the one thing I've always had trouble with people joining my fantasy league, it's like the site looks like it was brought to you by the year the internet came. So I feel like people are when they look at it, it's it's not visually appealing. So people are well, why don't we go to like Sleeper that looks like really, crisp and nice? Or if you look at my fantasy league, it's really for it's for the guts, right? It's like for the customization. It's not for like the visual aesthetics. It's like, like this is such a great viewing experience.
Not that I'm going to bat for MFL by any means whatsoever, but like JT had mentioned before, you can customize it pretty awesome when you get leagues like Star Wars and shit like that. You can put all this. I mean, if you're not familiar with I guess that's the thing. People just draft on there and they walk away from this 1970s site, kind of stuff like that. But if you're on there and you know how to use MFL, you know how to use a customization for Christmas and Veterans Day and all these skins keep coming out for your site, and you can customize for anything else like that. So I will say, I mean, I don't want to sell MFL short. I don't like it, but it is if you know how to use it real well and you were a desktop guy, I think it by far. If I worked with a bunch of people who worked in the same office building who were really serious in fantasy football, we'd probably have MFL. But being a construction guy and all my people in my leagues are cops and firemen and construction guys too. We're all relegated to cell phones, so we don't enjoy all the things that MFL has to offer. So.
Well, I think one of the reasons why Sleeper is so well received is because of its app. I think most people end up using fantasy football through their mobile app.
I'm not even going to read that, Dustin.
He's right though. I mean, if you go to the main site, it looks terrible. But like, if you go to a couple of my leagues I'm in, I mean, they visually look amazing. But that have been customized and been paid to get customized. I mean, I had my site recustomized for my 217 Dynasty League I run. That's my huge league with all my home league for my friends for 15 years or whatever. I had a whole site redone this year, and it looks amazing. I mean, it doesn't look like anything on MLF. But again, you got to pay for it, or you have to know how to do that. And the biggest gripe as we're the commissioner evaluation show, that's my biggest gripe with ESPN. Is it is impossible to do any commissioner stuff from the app. Yeah. You literally have to log out and log back in on an internet screen. And then ESPN constantly tries to get you to use the app when you're trying to get in on your computer or on your phone to like use the commission thing to try to do something. It was like, oh, don't you want to use the app? And I'm like, no, I don't, because then I can't do any of my commissioner stuff. So that's my biggest pet peeve of someone who's run leagues on ESPN for a decade and a half. Is unless I'm sitting in front of my computer, I cannot do any commissioner stuff whatsoever on my stuff. So people are like, hey, can you push that trade through? I'm like, let me get on my computer real quick so I can send it. It's like, it's so annoying. That's what drives me crazy about the ESPN app. That was the same thing I had problems with the Yahoo app.
Yeah, and 5 minutes before the Bears game, when you're the commissioner of 5 leagues, and everybody's like, "Oh, we did this, do that." I don't have any service. I'm around 10,000. I'm around 80,000 people. My phone doesn't work, and I'm trying to push trades in before. And then ESPN is very, very hard to change things after the game started too. That's another problem with ESPN.
Yeah, they won't let they don't let commissioner like take over and make some adjustments or changes, which drives me crazy. Other leagues let you get into as a commissioner and make those changes, and they want to make you take 20 steps to try to get rid of something. It drives me nuts.
Dustin said on here, MFL was made by a 5th grader back in 1908. It's hot trash. I thought he said 1980, and I'm like, shit. I was a 5th grader back in 1980. Like, shut up, nerd. But it's 1908, so whatever. I'm old. Yeah, it's getting old. I can't even read the screen anymore. I'm so old.
See, but yeah, like I said, I mean, all the guys I know that love MLF all have desk jobs. So they love MLF because they're on the computer all day. It's easy for them to just jump up there and they know where everything's at. But again, I have people every year that they get on there like, how do I figure out how to draft on MLF? I'm like, yeah, I know. You got to like go through like 5 steps, look at this, look at that. The one thing they did do this year, though, they did make an adjustment and put draft at the top now. So you used to have to hit like 4 or 5 things to find the draft button whenever you're doing drafts, but they actually listened and fixed that. So they listened to 1 or 2 people at least over the last 10 years of not changing anything on MLF. They finally made that adjustment.
Steve, would you rather have a taxi squad or just expand your rosters by 5 spots?
I mean, so it'll be interesting from JT's standpoint as to how he's incorporated this with his contract league. I think really at the end of the day, it's kind of it doesn't really matter. I mean, you have 5 extra roster spots, whether on your bench or your taxi squad. However, if you are able to, whatever you want to call it, sign players off other people's taxi squad or poach them. I personally like that, because then there's an element of like, okay, I have players on my taxi squad, but they are still possibly available. It's just that they're gonna have to inherit the contract that the player has. So that's my one caveat with that.
There has to be bigger punishments for poaching players off people's rosters besides you just signing them or them signing them. Because when you have guys in your taxi squad and people are allowed to poach, it can't be just like, all right, we owe that guy a 5th round pick. When you drafted somebody in the 5th round that end up being a stud, kind of thing like that. Like, there's no reason that you should only just be able to be compensated a 5th round pick for, or cutting somebody on your active roster to bring somebody from your taxi squad to your active roster. Also, there has to be a bigger, I don't know what, I'm not really sure how to. It has to be something like this. If you trade for anybody in the taxi squad, it should be a 1st round pick for the opposite team, that kind of deal. And a definitely
1st round pick,
something like that. I mean, it's got to be something serious.
Whoa!
I'm just saying, especially a heavily depleted 1st round pick is not really worth as much as a regular 1st round pick, as far as that goes. And most people that have taxi squads are probably in the W League to begin with, I'm just saying, like, maybe not all of them. Maybe I'm overthinking it, because the only ones I have a taxi squad in are my W League, my W depleted league. So I just feel like maybe a 1st round pick's too much, but if you draft well in your Campus Canton League or your other leagues that are, really, really, really deep, it shouldn't be just compensation back and forth, for this guy to poach off your roster. There's got to be other punishments for that.
I mean, the way I like this, I guess the way I think about it is I try to emulate the NFL as much as possible. I mean, so you saw, for example, wide receiver Isaiah Hodgins, was poached off the Bills practice squad, ended up becoming a really good player for the Giants. Now, mind you, you're not going to have, it's going to be maybe a stronger caliber of player on your taxi squad, but to me, I feel like it's just kind of the name of the game.
Isaiah Hodgins is kind of a fill-in player, though. He's a wide receiver 5 or 6 or something like that. He had a decent year because everybody was hurt on a team. Like, next year, he'll be irrelevant. Maybe not irrelevant, but he won't be someone you could start on a regular basis, and on your team, unless your team absolutely blows. But that's a whole different story. I can't help you with that.
There's 1 or 2 teams he might play quite a bit on mine. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little light on wide receivers on a few teams.
I'm hoping that he plays on yours in the league we just started up with, JT. That'd be great. I would love that. So, how do you incorporate IDP into your league? Like, here's the thing. As a commissioner myself, it's very hard to change from, like, regular 1 quarterback to super flex, or change from, adding even just so much as adding an extra flex position, or getting rid of defense, or getting rid of kickers, or things like that. Because some people have really good kickers. Right? If you have the Patriots defense, it's almost like having a number 1 tight end on your roster, depending on the scoring concerns. So bringing in an entire, 11-person IDP, or even if you just have defensive linemen, linebackers, and defensive backs, that's still 3 more extra players in your team. How do you just start the whole league over with and say, hey, guys, here's the story. In 2 years, we're going to shit can this league, start from scratch with IDP? Or do you just say, hey, in 2 years, we're going to have an IDP draft separately from this draft. I'll expand the rosters, incorporate IDP. How far do you go as far as your IDP positions? And what's the best way to incorporate it? So, Steve, I'll start with you, but JT, I want to hear your comments on this also.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I actually listened to a podcast of yours recently. I know, John, you are like, this is too much. Like, I can't handle the incorporation of IDP. And honestly, in some ways, I don't blame you. I think that I think it is growing. I think I'm seeing more and more people on Twitter talking about it. I think more and more people are interested in trying it out. But the problem is there's no really cookie cutter way of doing it. And I think that's kind of the issue. I don't know about you, JT. I'm an all-in type of guy. So for me, having 1 defensive lineman, 1 linebacker, and 1 defensive back isn't going to cut it for me. Because at that point, it's just a glorified kicker. Especially with defense, if you've played an IDP, they're kind of feast or famine. One day you're going to have Chandler Jones get you 5 sacks, and the next 5 games he's not going to get you a single sack. So, when it comes down to it, you really, I feel like, have to have a concentrated approach of like, hey, we're going to have like a fuller IDP roster. And I don't even know if I would really like it in a redraft setting. I really like it in a dynasty setting. I mean, that draft would be a long draft every year if you were doing a startup draft with IDP and offense. But I probably would recommend you create a startup dynasty league that incorporates IDP. But their scoring, I know they've come up. Some do I think the basic 1, 2, 3 type of scoring. But the other problem I have with it is it's like the best players are all linebackers, which it isn't representative of actually who are the best defenders. And I think that's also the part that makes it tough. So I think as for a commissioner, with this being the commissioner evaluation podcast, the onus really is on the commissioner to make for the best experience. And if you don't, then most likely your guys are going to try IDP and be like, it's not for me. Because I think that you really have to be intentional about it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Just doing a couple guys, it doesn't work out very well. We had a keeper league that I'm in with a bunch of guys in the Indianapolis area, and they try to just implement like one individual defender with a team defense, and everybody's like, and the scoring was really low, so the individual defenders barely scored anything. If they got 10 points, it was a ton, and it just didn't work out that well. So I agree with you. I think if you're going to go IDP, you kind of have to go all out. Because if you just do a couple guys, I don't think it makes it worthwhile. And then again, you're trying to find those advantages on defense, whether you take some defensive ends so everybody else doesn't have them, or safeties, or whatever you're doing. If you only have to play a couple spots, then really those guys are interchangeable for the most part. And I think that's where you lose that IDP edge of like, oh, I want to load up on linebackers so I have all the best guys. Well, if we all are only going to play a couple, then you don't really need to draft them very high. They don't have to get drafted. It's almost like a throw-in at the end. So what I always talk to people about commissioning IDP leagues is, as commissioner, you do have to make those executive decisions sometimes over the whole league and saying, hey, I've got to adjust scoring this way. I'm not going to take a vote, but I need to adjust it to make sure these positions are usable. If you have a quarterback to position that you have to start, and you basically don't use passes, defense aren't worth anything, and picks are like 2 points, you're going to get nothing out of those guys. So you got to figure out a way to make those guys incorporated and make them score more points. And I think that's the job. I always start with IDP 1, 2, 3. I always tell people kind of start with that. That's the easiest way to go. And then for your league, make slight adjustments. So that's what I did. I did like more quarterback hurries or pressures and hits. Started giving a few more points to those. So those defensive ends that maybe don't always get sacks but are putting pressure on the ball, those guys are still getting points. So, and then if you got like MLF, you can adjust it to where a D lineman gets more points for a tackle than a linebacker does. Yep. That's ways where you can kind of offset it a little bit where you get those D linemen who make plays. So I'm in leagues that do, like, I have some leagues that are combined D line. So it's D line, D end, linebacker, and then DB, which is safety or quarterback. And then I'm in a couple leagues where it's, you got to start one defensive tackle, 2 D ends, 2 linebackers, 1 quarterback and 2 safeties, and then a flex. So I just think that's interesting too, because the defensive tackle and cornerback usually don't score you points unless you adjust them properly. Though I did bring this up a couple weeks ago, but since John doesn't usually play IDP, we didn't talk about it much. But MLF finally did go in and make the adjustment that a lot of IDP players have been asking for, as causing those edge and defensive ends to be the same position. So now if you're a 3-4 linebacker, say you play for the Steelers and you're TJ Watt, or you're Bosa and you play for the Chargers and they switch to a 3-4. So instead of them now be considering, they were considered a linebacker in a 3-4, now they're considered a DN on MLF. So anyone who plays the rush position is now a DN. I think on Sleeper they have them DN/linebacker. So on Sleeper, it actually allows you to play both spots. So I just got into a startup and I took Bosa and TJ Watt pretty early because I could play them both at D-line and linebacker, but also them being able to play D-line makes them way more valuable than them as a linebacker, where I think that's where the value got lost in the past. If guys would switch teams, all of a sudden they switch positions, and a Bosa would go from, a first-round pick to, a 10th-round pick. If he's a linebacker opposed to a DN. So I'm excited about that this year, that they've made those changes. And I've warned all my leagues, hey, be aware that these guys have moved positions, and this is now going to be the position going forward. Anyone who plays on the edge is going to be considered a DN. And I think that should hopefully really improve real life values of these guys.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think what they call it is like they play like true position leagues, but that's where they made that change. And you're right. I with Fantrax, you're able to customize the position. So I had been doing that where I was making basically it's like edge rushers and interior defensive linemen. That's really what it is. But if you didn't have that before, you had the likes of Khalil Mack and TJ Watt being linebackers, and they're not linebackers, so they didn't score. Like it just. It wasn't representative of what they were doing. So that from an IDP standpoint and from an MFL standpoint, that had to happen. So good for them for doing that, because I know that they have a lot of influence in the IDP circles, and I think that's going to help a lot with curbing some dissatisfaction for people who try it. But one other thing I would make the comment of, if you are going to do IDP, if you try to do the offensive equivalent, think if you were going to say like, hey, let's do a league where there's one wide receiver. You'd be like, what? Like, there's so many wide receivers. Well, it's the same thing. If you do one defensive end, there's a ton of edge rushers across the league. And so then it's like, why do I need to prioritize drafting the elite of the Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons when I can just pick up a guy, on fantasy and waivers? The incentive to draft them and the strategy behind them is completely lost. So you got to have a certain amount of positions to create that scarcity, or else people are not going to be interested.
Yeah, the scarcity and the points. You're making sure they're scoring enough points that it makes sense. So, like I tell people, if your IDP players, if your top 50 are only offensive guys, you're not doing IDP right. Need to have some defensive guys need to be in the mix there, because that raises their value, especially in rookie drafts. I'm in rookie drafts where they're deep and we count a lot of IDP points, but a lot of times the top guys aren't going until about the third round. But I'm in other leagues where the scoring is a little more tweaked towards IDP even more. And those guys are going second overall pick, fourth overall pick, 10th pick. They're taking IDP guys over wide receivers because, man, if you get a stud defensive end that gets a bunch of sacks, all of a sudden he's going to be blowing up and he can get you 25, 30 a week as opposed to a number 3 rookie wide receiver. So I definitely think making sure those spots are good. And I think the death nail of any IDP league is when it's super interchangeable and everybody seems the same. Then it's like, why am I playing IDP? And I had some leagues like that where I had to increase the scoring. When my very first IDP league I started from scratch, we had the scoring too low, and we had a couple teams who literally were just picking up guys off waivers every week because they're like, it's about the same. And I'm like, that's not how we want to do things, because then why am I drafting a defensive player? Why are we doing this? Why are we holding studs if they're not going to score any more points? So, yeah, I had to eventually, as the commissioner, make adjustments to that so that the TJ Watts and the Shaq Leonards and the Roquan Smiths, were guys that were in the top 15, 20 in scoring. And then you're like, okay, now these guys are worth something in trades. Now these guys are worth something, as a draft pick. And that's what you want to do. Because if you just are picking up guys off free agency every week, then what's the point of what you're doing on IDP?
Yeah, I'm with you 1,000.
Enough IDP talk.
We're killing John here.
Yeah, he's had enough.
This is more IDP talk than we've ever had combined
in the history of IDP leagues. All right, one more thing. What did you have to say, Steve?
Well, I'm just going to say, I agree with JT 1,000%. I think that, especially when it comes to the commissioner evaluation podcast, if you are a commissioner and you want to incorporate IDP, that is a huge lift for a commissioner, and it is going to require you to make those changes and for your league mates to agree to those changes. So I think it's one of the bigger changes that a commissioner has, the onus to make for a good experience. And then for the 2020 draft, I'm curious. For our league, Chase Young went number 1. Did he also go number 1 in yours?
We have not done ours yet, but last year we did have Chase Young went number 2 overall in our league.
Sorry, in the 2020 rookie draft, in that draft? I don't know if you remember.
Chase Young. Yeah, for the Commanders.
Yeah, sorry, Chase Young. Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, wrong Chase. Yeah.
No, you're good. No, so yeah, he went number 2 overall in my one IDP league, and he went number 4 and number 7, if I remember, in my other 2 leagues. So he went top 10 in every one of those.
All right.
John, we can move on now.
We can move on.
So my last commissioner question for today is, when you incorporate this situation and you have IDP and you have 72,000 man rosters because you have every position on offense and defense covered, how do you fill an orphan when somebody drops out of the league or so? Unfortunately, I've had three people die that are in my home league, stuff like that. So how do you replace an orphan? It's much easier to replace an orphan in a regular super flex league or a one quarterback league or something like that, especially if it's a money league. If the team sucks, somebody walked away and it's an IDP league where you got, where do you turn to fill an orphan on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I think, based on your personal network as a commissioner, you kind of have that responsibility to try to, reach out to people that who could possibly be interested in the league. So, I think, unfortunately, you're inheriting somebody else's team, and that is a difficult process. So, to me, I guess the only thing I could say is I don't know if you would agree with this, JT, but I think incorporating a salary cap in your league helps from that process happen, because I feel like a lot of the times why someone would decide to orphan is they're just like, my team is in the absolute hole and I don't want to take the time to build it out. And these other teams are so much better than me. They've got rookies that they can keep or players that they drafted as rookies that they can keep for the next 10 years. And I don't have a shot at doing this. So I'd rather just hit the reset button and start over. And that's why I'm going to orphan. So if you have like a salary cap, it helps regulate things. So that type of thing doesn't happen. Because I would guess if that person orphans, they don't orphan just because like I'm done with Dynasty. More than likely than that, I would think they do another startup and start over the process. I don't think they're orphaning to just get out of Dynasty altogether.
Right. No, it's 100% right. And nobody leaves a Dynasty league or an IDP or a Devi, or a Camp Scan league when they won the league. It's always when they've gone for the title. And the Titanic hit the iceberg and the ship's on the way down right now. That's the only time they're like, all right, man, that's it. I'll be the first rat off the boat before the thing sinks, that kind of stuff. So it is what it is. All right. Enough of them commissioner questions. Let's get to some NFL news and rumors here. So we're going to go with the even questions. I'll give the Steve the odds. I'll give the JT so he doesn't have the Colts, so he can't elaborate for 4 hours. So here we go. All right. So odds. Bears. How much do you think the Bears have faith in Khalil Herbert?
I think they like Khalil Herbert. I'm not sure they're totally believing that he can carry the whole load, or do I think they're going to expect him to? I'm getting some Foreman in some leagues, man. If Khalil Herbert gets hurt, I could see Foreman being a workhorse for them. I still would not be surprised if they go somewhere in the draft and try to take an RB maybe in the third or fourth round.
Yeah. All right. So, Steve, is Irv Smith Jr. Is this a comeback season with the Bengals?
Yeah, I do think so. The question is, will he stay healthy? That's always been his concern, is that he can't stay healthy. But he has the opportunity now that Hayden Hurst is gone. He has the opportunity to be the tight end one in that offense. The question is, will he get the volume with Chase and Higgins? That's a lot of volume and targets going out to them. But this is a good chance for him.
All right. JT, Bills, is Khalil Shakir the future?
I like Shakir's role in this team. With them getting rid of McKenzie, I think he's got a great opportunity to take over that slot. Obviously, you saw Gabe Davis didn't completely blow us away like everyone thought he was going to as the wide receiver 2 next year. I can see Shakir kind of sneaking up on that wide receiver 2 role for the Bills this year.
I think they're going to draft the future of the slot receiver in the draft this year. I don't know who it's going to be, but it's going to be somebody to fill that slot. They can't mess around anymore. They're in a serious DEFCON 5 situation right now where the AFC is passing them up fast. So they can't mess around with the running back position. They can't mess around with the wide receiver position. They got to do what they got to do. They're trying to piecemeal things together, but that's a team that they're on win now, and they don't want to. You can't have a guy like Josh Allen and let this team fall apart around him. You can't do that. So I think that Shakir is okay. He's fine. He's a great backup to a good wide receiver, but I don't think Shakir is the answer. That's just me. I like him. Don't get me wrong. I do like him. I have him on a lot of teams, but I'm starting to trade him away everywhere because I just feel that that's not what's going to happen. Every piece of the Bills' offense is a good piece to have on your dynasty roster. Just saying. But I just feel like I wouldn't trade the house for him right now if you think he's going to be the answer at slot receiver. If he is, that's awesome. But
Steve, I wouldn't trade for him until you see what they do with the draft. That's for sure.
You're going to hate my trade you see in these trade things later, but it is what it is. We'll talk about that later. It's bad. Sorry, but it is what it is. Steve, Broncos, will Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy get traded?
Real quick, as a Bills fan, I do agree with your analysis there as far as the Bills go. But as far as the Broncos go, I think one of them are going to get traded during the draft. They're trying to squash these rumors of like, oh no, it's not a real thing, but we keep hearing about it. Like it's not going away. So I think they are going to get traded. One of them will get traded.
Yes, one of them will get traded. JT, Browns, David Bell, buy, sell, hold, or cut.
If you've already got him, he's a hold probably. I was an out on him from the beginning. I didn't take him anywhere, so I was a sell. I don't think you can get anything for him if you try to sell him right now. If you want to buy him, I guess you can. Hopefully you get him real cheap, but I'm out on David Bell. If I got him on a roster, which I don't, I would be probably just holding and see if something happened.
Yeah, Steve, Buccaneers, buying the rumor that Rachaad White is becoming will be the 3-down back?
I think it's a smokescreen. I'm not buying it. I think they'll draft a running back in the draft. I just don't see him carrying the full load.
Yeah, neither do I. JT, Cardinals, will D-Hop get traded? Albert Breer says that he may get cut. What's the story with that?
I think they're going to try to trade him. The question is what they can get in return for him with his big contract. And, he's on the other side of 30 now. I could definitely see a cut. At this point, if you're looking at this Cardinals team, I know they just got a new head coach and everything, but they have tank written all over them at this point. Without Murray for the whole year, they're coming in like, oh, we're super confident Colt McCoy is going to be the guy. Okay, I'm thinking tank all the way now at that point. So I think if you've got an older asset like him, they're going to try to get rid of those guys.
The best they can, right. Steve, Chargers, does anything happen to Austin Eckler?
I don't think so. He's an older running back. NFL doesn't prioritize older running backs. And the Chargers don't have any incentive to trade him. They have him still on a 1-year deal. I don't think he's going to hold out. So I think he's stuck with them. And then next year, he'll probably move on.
Yeah, he's got a big social media influence. He's trying to tug everybody's, alligator tears out of him right now, saying, what am I supposed to do? I got 1 year left. This isn't fair, but it is what it is. It's the nature of the beast. This is your job. You knew what you got into. Don't let your moms raise running backs is kind of what the story is here, but it is what it is. JT, Chiefs, does Pacheco start next season?
This is the crazy scenario. You never know with the Chiefs. I mean, they loved him at the end of the year, but I could see them going out and getting a couple more RBs in this draft and throwing a million guys out there again. It's hard to see that they're going to have any one set running back with the way they've handled things the last couple of years. So I definitely would. I see people keeping him in keeper leagues. I see people trading for him. I'm just not sold that Pacheco is going to get all that work next year that everyone kind of thinks is going to be guaranteed his. I'm out on that.
Steve, the question of the hour here. How much better will the Colts be with Will Levis?
Oh boy. I'm not a Will Levis fan. So as a result, I'm not Mel Kiper. I know Mel Kiper thinks he's like going to be the best quarterback in this draft. So I hope for their sake that they get Anthony Richardson instead of Will Levis. But if they were to have Levis, Steichen, he was able to kind of do the pass run option with Jalen Hurts. I think both could do that. I think Richardson has a little more finesse where Levis has a little bit more power running style. So I don't know. I'm not a big believer in him. So I would say I don't think they'll get too much better, but you never know.
Those who watch the show know that JT's a Colts season ticket holder and he hates Will Levis. So I love throwing these barbed questions at the guests and watch JT's reaction.
See, that was a great answer. That might be the greatest answer we've ever had from a guest on this show.
Hey, thank you, JT. Thank you.
Next question. All right. JT, Cowboys. Should Jerry draft a running back or a wide receiver in round 1?
Oh, man, it depends on who gets their spot. I could see a lot of the offensive guys falling this year, and if you got good value there, I wouldn't just skip them just because you say you don't want offense in the first round. As you see in the NFL, you can never have too many offensive players. They kept thinking they were going to be loaded last year, and they had all kinds of injuries, and they were signing T.Y. Hilton off the street at the end of the season. So I could see them definitely going in and saying, hey, we need some more firepower for Dak.
Yes, I don't blame him. Jerry World's going to have to make something happen here. But it is what it is. We'll talk about Dak later, but Cowboys, should Jerry – wait, hold on. Sorry. Dolphins, how many games does Tua start?
Well, John, I see you have that Dolphins hat on your head, so I'm going to be curious what you say. So I'm going to put the over-under at 11.5. So do you agree? What would you say?
I mean, he's taking karate classes, so he doesn't land funny. He's doing all this other stuff like that, but injuries happen. I mean, I don't know how he gets hit so often because he throws 5-yard slants and his receivers turn into 90-yard touchdowns. So I have no idea how he holds on to the ball so bad. I do not like Tua. I'm not a Tua fan. I've always said my opinion here before. He throws about 5 interceptions a game, and thank God defensive players are on defense because they can't catch the ball. They're wide receivers, DBs, safeties, all that stuff. They're guys who should play wide receiver, but they can't catch the ball. If you watch a Dolphins game, Tua is the most aggravating quarterback in the history of the league, minus a couple of big plays. He gets down the red zone, he chokes up the whole offense. You can't really punch it in anywhere near the red zone. It's always field goals. Don't. Anyway, this is my Will Levis comparison.
I guess I should never even pass the baton to you. I see.
So yeah, I should never answer Dolphins questions, and JT should never answer Colts questions. But I'm going to say that they are going to. I don't know how they could bolster the team any more than they already have right now for him. A couple more offensive linemen. They rebrought the entire running backs, situation back. So I'm going to go with the over on 11.5 games, just because I think that they're going to do the best they can to keep him upright. And if one of those receivers gets hurt, I don't think either one can operate without both of them being on the field as a number one and number two, like kind of just keeping distractions off of each other. So I'm going to go with the over on Tua, but I don't see him having the same, Madden type stats as he had this year. Let's see, Eagles. Does Rashad Penny start at running back?
If Rashad Penny can start the season, if they don't draft a running back, he starts the season, I think he could be an absolute stud in that system. Now, the question always is with Rashad Penny, how long is it going to be before he gets hurt? I love him, San Diego State guy, but man, he just can't ever stay healthy. But if you could get 8 games out of them this year, you might get 8 really good games. He could put up a ton of rushing stats. So I love him in this offense, but we're just looking for that miracle season where he plays like 14 or 15 games, but I don't know if it's a possibility.
Falcons, can Pitts get back on track?
I'm going to say no. I think he's a great talent. I think from a dynasty perspective, I'd want to have him up at the top. But I don't know what Arthur Smith is doing. And he just brought in Jonnu Smith. And Jonnu Smith and him, were in Tennessee together. There's familiarity there. I don't know. I think it's going to be underwhelming again this year.
49ers, Darnold and Lance will share first-team reps while Purdy's recovering. So that's something that's going on right now. Do you think they trade Lance? And here's the thing. I think they trade Lance. I think Purdy's surgery might be a little bit more involved than people know because he is still swelling. They couldn't do surgery till right now. He's not he's just somebody that's on the team. He won a couple games by being a game manager, but if they trade Lance and Purdy's still a little bit, what happens if Sam Darnold starts this season on hot? Because the 49ers are a fantastic team. They have a great defense, great running game, great tight end, great wide receivers, great gimmick plays. If Darnold starts out hot on this team and Purdy comes back from recovering, let's say week 2, week 3, week 4, whatever, that kind of deal, do you think that they just say, hey, we won the first 4 games and Purdy, it's your team now kind of thing? Or what do you think is going to happen with that?
I mean, if Darnold gets in there, I think he could make some noise. I think this is a great fit for him, actually, personally. I think he finally is going to have a good offense around him. I think, he actually played really well with CMC last year before he got hurt and CMC got traded. I'm telling you, if I'm Lance or Purdy, I don't want Darnold to get an opportunity because I think if he gets an opportunity, he might steal this job.
You put will steal this job is what you meant to say. Let's see. Maybe before, but Gainwell's the starter. Yeah. So we were talking about before. Dustin just jumped in saying 8 games. So maybe 4. Gainwell is the starter. I like Kenneth Gainwell in Philly. I have him on a bunch of teams, so I'm a little bit biased on that situation. But Penny is a great running back. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. So Giants, is Dan Bellinger a buy right now?
No, I don't think he is at all. Darren Waller is coming in. I think Darren Waller is going to be the number 1 target in that offense. If anything, he's a hold because I don't know what you get for him for his value. So I'd say hold.
Yeah, I just bought him for a bunch of garbage, but I had to get rid of. I had a team with 35 men on the roster, and I got rid of like 5 nobodies to trade for him. So I bought him just because Waller's a guy who gets injured a lot. He's already 30 years, some years old. He's got a lot of, he doesn't have a lot of tread on his tires from before, but last couple seasons he's been being used, and he's shown that he can't really stay in the lineup. So for me, Bellinger is a buy, but that's fine. Everybody has their opinion. I'm right though. I'm the host. So Jaguars, can Ridley be a wide receiver 1 again?
I think he's got a shot to come back to form. I'm not 100% sure he's got that wide receiver top 12 in him again. Even with T-Law, I mean, sitting out 2 years is a long time for a professional athlete to sit out and just come back and be who they were. I think he's going to show flashes. I think he's going to be good for the Jags, but I just don't see him coming back as that clear-cut wide receiver 1 he was before.
I just feel like when he was kind of mailing it in towards the end of his season anyway, last time he played, I didn't feel like his heart was fully in the game when he played before. I think he was pissed off at the Falcons. I don't know what the deal was, but I don't really see that he's going to come back and be a wide receiver 1. Of course, it'd be welcome for all the fantasy football players that have spent too much to get him or overspent to acquire him. So I would love to see it, but I'm not expecting it. Jets, will Corey Davis be part of the Rodgers trade?
Yeah, I think he has to at this point. I think that he is definitely a cap casualty for them. They already brought in McCole Harbin and Alan Lazard. So, I know they traded Elijah Moore, but they also have Denzel Mims. So I would have thought he would have been cut by now. So why hasn't he been cut? Well, Packers are saying, the rumor is Packers say they want a veteran receiver in return. So I think he is.
I have Corey Davis. I got him for nothing. Like, people just cut him at the end of last year, and I picked him up as end of my roster kind of stash. So I still like Corey Davis. I think he's got a couple good years left. If he can find the right opportunity, hopefully Green Bay is the answer. Lions, Dave Montgomery or DeAndre Swift on your fantasy teams?
Oh, man, this is going to be a tough one. I've got a ton of both of those guys. If you can get them both, great, because if Swift gets hurt, Monty becomes your workhorse. I'm just not sure Swift's going to get all that many touches. I mean, they've shown that they kind of want to give him about 10 or 12 touches a game, and that's about it. Now, he's explosive when he gets the ball, but relying on him as your RB 1 or 2 this year, I think is going to be a lot of problems for teams with that. I think both guys are a flex play at this point. But dynasty-wise, I probably want Swift. If I'm in a redraft, I maybe want Monty this year, thinking he could get a little more of the workload.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have Swift everywhere too. I don't think Montgomery's as good as a player as DeAndre Swift is by any means whatsoever. So on Dynasty, I want Swift. As a matter of fact, I think Swift gets traded before the Week 8 trade deadline. So that's just me. But I'm not sure Montgomery is as talented as Swift is. Packers, can Jordan Love have a fantasy relevant season this year?
Yeah, I think he can. I don't see him being a QB1. I think he's most likely a QB2 and kind of a stream play. I mean, we've already seen, LaFleur come out and say, hey, kind of temper your expectations, for Jordan Love. But, yeah, I think he could be relevant for sure.
Panthers, who should Carolina take with the 101?
It hurts me to say this as a Colts fan because I really want them to get C.J. Stroud, but I think C.J. Stroud's the guy. To me, I think he's the best quarterback in this draft. I just think, watch the tape. I know everybody is going to constantly talk about, well, he just had the best wide receivers in the nation to throw to every year. But, man, he put the ball right where he needed to, and he made plays. He didn't turn the ball over. I think he's got enough mobility to be that type of guy in the league. He's not going to run a ton. But if I'm the Panthers, I'm taking Stroud unless I'm saying, hey, we're still a year or two away. Let's take Richardson and take the huge upside that could be Richardson. But if I just don't know how you do that, though, with all the picks you traded away, assuming that Richardson's going to take a year or two. I mean, maybe I'm wrong and he comes in and he just blows it up for the Panthers. But I think they think that they're got a team that can win the division and make the playoffs. I really do think they think that. And so if I'm them, I'm taking Stroud because I think he's the most ready player for the NFL, and I just think he's got the longest high upside. I think upside is Richardson for the ceiling, but I think Stroud has that longevity. I think he easily has the longest, best career of this group.
What if the Panthers want a better version of Cam Newton to start their franchise rebuild with?
like I said, I can see them if they see that Cam side, and they just love the upside. I think Richardson's worth a swing. Personally, for me, I mean, he's got all the tools. That 53% completion percentage just has me floored. That's going to be tough to overcome. Not that guys haven't done it in the past. But if I'm a team that thinks I'm winning now, I just don't know how I take Richardson 1-1 with all the picks I traded away and the fact that he might be 2 years down the road. So
I don't think the Panthers think they're winning right now. So
I kind of crazily think they do, though. That's my only issue. Is I kind of think they crazily in their mind think that they can win and make the playoffs. So I don't think so personally, but I think they kind of have that feeling. So I could see them going Richardson here. But I think it's Richardson or Stroud personally.
I tend to agree with JT. I think they can compete as well. I actually think they can. Now that Brady's out of there, they were pretty close to being in the conversation to winning the division, before they ended up losing to Tom and the Bucs.
Listen, you're not supposed to comment unless it's your question, okay? So.
I know. I was going for so long. I felt like I had to say something.
Patriots, Bill Belichick, non-committal on Mac Jones recently. Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, Lamar Jackson, or someone else as a starter?
Yeah, I think it's Mac Jones. I think this is just the rumor mill kind of, cranking up. And, he's got familiarity with Bill O'Brien, coming over from Alabama. So I think it's going to be Mac Jones.
Raiders, Brian Hoyer going to save Josh McDaniels' job?
I don't think anyone can save Josh McDaniels' job, especially Brian Hoyer. I was at his last start in the NFL, and let me tell you, it was not a pretty sight for the Colts. It was real ugly. I just applaud Brian Hoyer for keep getting checks, man. This guy's staying in the league. It's been phenomenal, man. At this point, he's just a glorified assistant coach. Yeah, on these teams, he's just going out there talking to the guys, but he's getting that paycheck. You got to love it.
$58 million, I think, was the total he made so far.
Wow,
that's absolutely awesome. Rams.
And they said Ohio State quarterbacks can't stick in the league. It's ridiculous.
Next question. Rams, let Cooper Kupp let Cooper Kupp win a ring with somebody else.
I mean, I think so. To me, I don't know what the Rams are doing. Well, I know what the Rams are doing. They're getting out of the cap jail that they're in. I just recently did a video where I gave them an F for an off-season grade. I don't even know why Sean McVay wants to come back, why Aaron Donald wouldn't just retire. To me, I think at this point, if you're going to let Ramsey go, trade Ramsey, let Bobby Wagner go, you might as well trade Cooper Kupp as well.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Ravens, are they wooing OBJ in order to woo Lamar Jackson back in? And woo's one of my favorite words, like to say. So,
I don't know. I'm not sold on this OBJ talk. I know he's solid. The guy hasn't been really a superstar in years. No. I'm not sure that's what fixes the Ravens. And if that's my best swing to get Lamar back, if I'm the Ravens, I don't know. I think that's a little too weak for me. I need a bigger hit than that to try to talk him into get me to come back there. So
absolutely. Saints, will Michael Thomas ever be healthy?
No. I am out on Michael Thomas big time. At the beginning of last year, I said you should trade him right now. This is your window. And if you didn't, now you're stuck with him. I think you're stuck with him at this point, though, because, he just can't stay healthy. It's crazy.
As the cool kids say, which I'm not a cool kid, but they say it to me, you played yourself if you didn't train him before. Seahawks, can Geno repeat himself? Could Geno repeat the performance he had last year?
I think it's a nice story. He got a good contract. I think it's going to be very tough for him to hit those same type of fantasy numbers. He got off to a quick start, was, crushing it out of the gate. His numbers tailed off near the end. If I'm going into a fantasy season, I get somebody that wants Geno, I'm trading him because I just don't think he's going to give you that fantasy wide receiver, low end wide receiver one, high end quarterback one or high end quarterback two in a super flex league. If I can get rid of him, I am.
Debbie Royale jumps in and says, "What's up, boys? Fantastic show. If you have not tuned into the Debbie Royale, I'm in a league with all three of those guys. Every one of them is, let's say, 30 times smarter than me, maybe 47 times smarter than me on everything. Fantastic job. I learn so much from these guys every day, just watching them on Twitter, getting their stuff. Thanks for chiming in. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Steelers. Can Najee become a workhorse, RB1?
I mean, yeah, we already saw it in his rookie year. I'm very high on Najee. I think there needs to be a market correction on the way back. I think people after this past season, people are way out on him. I think he's a great buy low opportunity. I'm big on Najee.
Texans, can Nico Collins be that guy?
Oh, I just don't know if Nico can be your main guy. I think if Nico can be healthy and get a QB play, he can be your number 2, number 3. I think he's got real good upside. I would be rough going on with Nico as my number 1 wide receiver every game if I'm the Texans.
You know what sucks? There's guys in the league, who's a wide receiver for the Chargers, the big guy, Mike Williams. There's guys like that where we can see why they get hurt because they go up for these jump balls, put themselves in terrible situations, and land on their shoulder or land funny out of bounds or things like that. There's just some guys who have annoying injuries all the time that can never be on the field. Nico Collins just needs to go find a different training staff or like start doing jiu-jitsu or something like that to get your body healthy because you can't go through life like wasting your NFL opportunity by being on the bench injured all the time. I just don't get that, man. I mean, it's easy. I played football my whole life. I get it, but you can't. The best ability is availability, and without that, man, you're just gonna get. It'll be a short. NFL stands for not for long when you're not on the field every game. Titans, give Malik Willis a chance or start from scratch.
I mean, I'd be curious to give him a chance, but he's not going to get it.
No.
I think Vrabel, based on some of the comments he's made, have been. I don't know. You could just tell the games that he started. He was not a fan of him, and now with Ray Carthon coming in as a GM, they're hitting the reset button. So I think Willis. If you had Willis, you had high hopes for Willis. I think the only way he's going to resurrect, not even resurrect. He never had a career, but the only way he can jumpstart his career if he goes to another team. I think he's done with the Titans.
He's done. Yeah, I think he's done too. Unfortunately, Vikings. Who was wide receiver 2 for the Vikings?
I don't think he's on the roster yet. I think they're going to go wide receiver in this draft. I could definitely see him going first round wide receiver if one of the guys they like is there. I don't think they get that far, but a JSN or an Addison I think would be awesome opposite JJ on that team. I don't know if they get this far or if the Vikings want to move up a little bit, but there's some guys I could see a Zay Flowers or a Josh Downs at the end of the first, possibly going to them as well. So I think Hawk has huge upside. Obviously, you showed you can do it last year opposite JJ. So I just think Osborne right now is technically slide as the guy, but I think he slides back down to wide receiver 3.
He is probably wide receiver 3. He already is wide receiver 3. I mean, it is what it is. So I'm just going to say Jalen Naylor and Jalen Reagor are, nice stashes right now for someone just in case somebody gets hurt, maybe possibly, or if they don't draft a wide receiver. But I think they're going receiver, and the wide receiver 3 is not on the team yet. I agree with that. So it's Washington football team. Terry F. McLaurin going to take off with Sam Howell at quarterback.
No, I think he'll just, if anything, he'll just continue what he's been doing. I'm not a big Howell fan personally. I wouldn't even be surprised if they draft. Oh, you're a big fan. Interesting.
No, I just have him everywhere, so I have to be.
Oh, okay, I see. Well, going into that draft class, the hype on him, he was going to be QB1. And then he had a really bad season at North Carolina, and then he dropped like a rock. So, right. For rookie drafts, it was a good value because there was had he went and entered the draft a year earlier, he probably would have been, a first round.
So Will Levis had a real good junior year, and he had a real bad senior year. So everybody's just saying, what happens here? What? I'm not saying.
Yeah, but they're not the same player though. I mean, Levis is definitely, I think, more dynamic as far as where the NFL is going with the run pass option and different off platform throws and stuff like that. So with guys like Allen and Mahomes, merging, people want to have the next type of player like that. Howell isn't that.
Yeah, I get it.
Give me Howell over Levis all day, every day.
Ooh,
I'll take Howell over Levis.
I take Levis on that. I think I'll go with the potential.
There we go. All right, so we have I run a series of home leagues called the Mighty McGlynn Home Leagues. There's been a couple trades, but only one recently this week so far. It's been Sam Darnold. I already have Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Trevor Lawrence on my team. as my in a Superflex dynasty. So I really don't need another quarterback. But people are just giving away Sam Darnold right now, and I do think that if he does get that outside chance to start for San Francisco and keeps that job, it's to the moon. So I gave up a guy who needed receivers. I gave away Khalil Shakir in the chance that Buffalo drafts a wide receiver and evaporates Khalil Shakir's value. So was that a trade worth making in a Superflex Dynasty full PPR league?
I mean, I like the move. I'll take Darnold. I just think with the injuries, he's got a shot to be pretty good, and he's worth an outside chance in a super flex league. I'm saying with you, John. I'm acquiring Darnold for cheap anywhere I can get him.
So when you said the trade, I would agree with JT and you that I would rather trade for Darnold and trade away Shakir because I do think they're going to bring another receiver and he's not going to be the slot guy. However, for your league, in the context with your team, I would not have done that trade. Darnold's never going to see that super flex spot. You already have Lawrence, Allen, and who was the other one you said?
Mahomes.
Oh, Mahomes, right. So it's like you've got literally unless you're going to – I would then say to you,
Come on.
You need to trade away one of those guys now and maximize that value. If it was me, I would do that.
I'm going to wait until Sam Darnold starts this year. Gets about a quarter away. After the first 2 seasons, after the first couple of weeks, when Sam Howell gets benched and Sam Darnold's value is pinnacle, then I'm going to trade. It's a super flex. Some people don't even have one quarterback to start in 12 teams. It's a 12-team dynasty super flex. Some people starting first, number one starting quarterback is Mac Jones without a second quarterback. So if I can get Sam Darnold at what I played for a wide receiver 5, maybe wide receiver 6 if they draft somebody else for a first-round pick next year because it's super flex dynasty and you need a quarterback, at that point in time, that's when I'm going to pull a trigger on this trade. I'm not going to give – I just figured there's no way to replace – if Patrick Mahomes was to go down, there's no way to replace him. If Trevor Lawrence goes down, there's no way to replace him. If Josh Allen goes down, there's no way to replace him. I'd rather have that third guy for bye weeks or an injury and never, ever, ever, ever have to worry about the quarterback position again and just go after running backs. I want to solidify my quarterbacks, and it's a tight end premium 0.75 league, so I want to solidify my tight end position, and then I'll get wide receivers as I go. I've come in second place for 2 years in a row since this league started. So I haven't. And I would have won this year if it wasn't for the situation that happened on the field, and we just called it a draw kind of thing. I would have won the championship and came in second place. So the quarterback starting a dynasty superflex league with 2 powerful quarterbacks is probably the best move you could possibly make. Some people are like, "Well, I need a wide receiver, or I need this and that." If you have Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts or something like that as your top 2 quarterbacks, you're going to outscore the rest of the league by that many points in that position alone. Let alone just drafting a handful of other guys throughout the draft and getting lucky or being good. There's no way to replace the quarterback position in Dynasty Superflex besides drafting them or trading for them and solidifying that position. I got 10 years before I have to worry about replacing a quarterback on this team. I don't care if I leave 20 points on the bench because this guy hit a better one. My biggest problem every week is going to be finding the 2 of the 3, which 2 to start, because one guy is going to – I guarantee you, which happens all the time, whoever I play – the other guy scores more. And I'm like, I'll start Trevor Lawrence this week. Josh Allen scores 85 points, or let's say 45 points, and Trevor Lawrence scored 16. It's like, I go back, same thing happens. Patrick Mahomes has a bad week, and I got, Lawrence on the bench, and it's like, shit. That's my biggest problem. But if that's my biggest problem, I'm okay with that. That's okay. That's
one of the reasons why I love fantasy football because, you can employ whatever strategy you think it is best, right? I mean, I disagree. To me, you have an insurance policy. I cash in that insurance policy. You want to keep Mahomes and Allen. I'm with you. It's great to have those quarterbacks, but cash in Lawrence and get, whatever receiver, running back, or tight end and make your team all the better. But hey, we agree to disagree. But that's the fun in fantasy is we all have different strategies.
Okay, settle this for me because in the back of my head right now, I feel like the best person to sell right now is Josh Allen because A, he's the number 1 ranked dynasty quarterback. B, I feel like the team's going to crumble around him the next year or 2. And C, he's got a lot of injuries on his arm that are starting to pile up. So would you trade away Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, or Josh Allen?
I mean, I hear what you're saying. Honestly, I don't think you could really go wrong with any one of them. I think I probably would pull the teams that are I see them all in that same bracket. honestly. It's Mahomes and Allen's in the tier 1, and I have Lawrence in a tier 2, and I think he's only going to ascend with now Ridley in the offense. So I probably would check the teams in my league and see who they covet. And if they're going to give me way more for one guy versus the other, then to me, I would do that.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we are going to look at a team that we're going to evaluate this week. That it was already shared with my co-hosts today. So this team, what we do every week is these are teams that are 12-team, 30-man rosters. It's dynasty, it's PPR. There's bonuses for 100 and 200 yards receiving, rushing, 300 yards and 400 yards passing. 6 points. It's 5-point passing touchdown, 2-point interception. Bonuses for long touchdowns, stuff like that. Nothing crazy though, but it's a great. I think it's a great league the way I have these set up. But the team we're doing right now, what I'm going to say is this team just won the championship this year. Okay, their team they're top heavy. The team is really 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 good. But it's like literally, it's probably the 4th best team in the league. When I read you this roster, you'd be like, "There's no way somebody's better than these guys." But he is, because other people have a lot more depth. They suffer from injury. So right now, this guy's team's got Burrow, McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, DeAndre Hopkins. The tight end, and it's tight end premium 0.5. It's this one's 0.5 this league. CJ Hawkinson. He's got Swift, Keenan Allen, Tua Tagovailoa. I love saying that because I could say it because I'm a Dolphins fan, so I could say it correctly. Malik Willis, Russell Wilson, who may have a comeback year. Tom Brady, who's gone. Sam Ellinger, nothing. Leonard Fournette, who knows what's going to happen there. Chuba Hubbard, he's getting passed up on the depth chart. Ty Johnson. Josh Kelly, I think, is a sleeper. Deonta Foreman, we already talked about earlier, was someone to acquire. Elijah Mitchell is always an injury-plagued kind of, wild card, but he could be awesome. Trey Sermon, we all had high hopes. This guy will not drop because he took a first-round pick on him, and he's stuck to him now. Gabe Davis, Amari Rodgers, Isaiah Hodgins, everybody's favorite sleeper. James Washington, who's not even on a team right now. Juwan Jennings, Khalil Shakir, who we already talked about him too. He's a boomer bust guy this year. I think it's probably a make it or break it season for him as far as that goes. Jerry Jeudy may get traded, maybe on the team. We never know. Dalton Schultz went to Houston. His value kind of took a hit there. Noah Fant, this guy went to Iowa, so he's Noah Fantastic is what his nickname is. Quentin Morris, nobody. Robin Krause, he retired, probably retired. And he's got Travis Homer on the IR. This guy has no picks besides the 401 in the 2023. And 2024, he has a first and 2 seconds, and that's it. But that's a good, that's all you need is a first and 2 seconds when you're doing when you need picks anyway, if you want picks. So we know the backstory of this team. We know what's going on. Like, what are you guys' suggestions to a guy like this? Now, I'm thinking what you need to do is, you won the money now. If you win first place, the next 8 years or 7.5 years are paid for. Does this guy drop his quarterbacks? I mean, his running backs like Dalvin Cook and Austin Eckler. Those guys are those are time bombs waiting to happen. Older running backs, and if one of those two goes down, he doesn't have the depth to make. He can't draft anybody. He doesn't have the depth to replace those guys. So it's all it takes right now. I mean, this guy feels like he's one injury away from just kind of being like middle of the pack again, as far as that's concerned. So I'm going to start with JT. Why don't you give me some? What would you think? What would you do with this team if you were this guy? You just won a championship. Next 7.5 years paid for. You got a great starting cast, but it's good. But there's 3 guys better than you already in this league who just kind of had the injury bug last year. You probably got lucky you won this year, but would you keep contending and keep rolling out with no draft picks, or what would you do?
Yeah, this one's tough because he does have a good team, and if his team stays healthy, I think he could still compete with this team, depending on where some of these guys land. But that's a big question mark now. D-Hop, where's he going? Is he staying in Arizona? What are they doing with Judy there in Denver? Does he end up in a better landing spot where now he's maybe the number 1 or number 2 on a team if he gets traded? So I definitely think I think Schultz, actually people are down on Schultz a little bit. But depending on who they get at QB, if they get like a Bryce Young or something, I could see Schultz actually getting a ton of targets on that Houston team, just because they don't have a lot of other players right now. So I could see him actually getting some play. Fant was playable. He wasn't a great play, but he was a flex play in some tight end premiums last year for me in a lot of leagues. So I definitely think he's in the mix. Obviously, a Dalvin Cook injury would hurt. He does have Foreman to help out a little bit. But I don't know. I don't know what strategy. I mean, if I can move like a D-Hop for a younger player, maybe I do that. If somebody's willing to give me something for Cook, I trade it. But at this point, we always talk about you get to that point where it's like, did you miss your window to trade that guy? And now if you're competing, do you just stick with him till the end of time? And at one point he's going to basically be, retired or, unplayable on your roster. But are you going to get anything more than a late second or early third for Dalvin Cook at this point? I don't know. It depends on how he kind of comes out and looks at the beginning of the year. But if it's me, I'm probably just shooting for another championship, hoping he stays healthy. If I go out and try to trade for Alexander Madison, try to get his backup, I'd be looking to do that, trying to give myself a little bit of coverage with a handcuff there. But yeah, other than moving his future 24s for some players this year or trying to fill in some spots, I'm just not sure what else I would do with this team. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I'm with you, JT. I think this team is got some really good bones to it. As far as I'm concerned, it's a stacked team. The thing is, I would say to your point, John, I think this is a 1-year window. Hopkins is a time bomb. I honestly believe, although he's younger, I'm down on Swift, but he becomes a free agent next year. Where does he go after Detroit? I'm very concerned about him, but Keenan Allen's a time bomb. I think after next year, he'll be 31. Once you start creeping up to 31, 32, wide receivers start tailing. And then you've got McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook, who now McCaffrey's a different type of running back. So maybe he lives on for, his value lives on for a little bit longer, but Cook's value is also a time bomb. But then on the flip side, you've got some really good building blocks. Like you've got the best receiver in Justin Jefferson. CeeDee Lamb is probably the wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4. So, and you've got Joe Burrow, as well as TJ Hawkinson, a tight end premium. He's a top 5 tight end. So you've got, I know you don't like Tua, John, but you do have Tua and Russell Wilson in a super flex. So they've got a lot of, it's tough because it's like you wouldn't want to tear this thing down because you've got the likes of Burrow, Jefferson, Lamb. Hawkinson, to me, like that, if you got draft picks, those are the type of players that you'd want to select and hit on. So you've already got some hits. So the question is, what do? I would say go for the championship in this 1 year and see if you can't be a repeat champion. Then after that, you kind of have to retool. If you wouldn't want to do that, the only way I think, and it's not the only way, but in my opinion, the way that I would go about doing it, I would personally say you can't really trade the likes of Hopkins and Cook because you're going to trade them to win now teams. They're the only ones who are going to be interested, and they're not going to give you a lot for them. So at that point, it's like, well, was it really even beneficial? To me, the 2 guys I'd be looking to trade are DeAndre Swift and Jerry Jeudy. Those are guys that are younger who have the potential to be really good, but they've never lived up to the hype. But depending on who is in your league, you could be huge Jeudy or Swift fans. And I think at that point, maybe you're able to pivot and get some other guys in your roster that you might be able to say, I improve now and I improve in the future. But other than that, I think you got to go for it.
There are 4 teams who are, Mount Everest kind of level. And then there literally is like 6 teams that are rebuilding pretty much. Everybody's at the point right now where they traded all their shit away. It didn't work out. They're trying to sell everything. So nobody's going to trade their picks for Cook or Eckler or something like that. So it's kind of hard to trade in this league right now too, because it's just such divided on the order of leagues. Yeah, he's the best. He's the shortest of the 4 midgets, I guess you want to call that, or the 4 giants, I guess, as far as that goes. Everybody else is midgets. And then there's like a guy at the very bottom who's just absolutely terrible, who has no picks, no players, no nothing like that. So it's one of those leagues where he almost it's by force he almost has to go for right now because he can't trade anything, he can't win, but he gets lucky again, and it's that situation. So every league is different. We can come in here and come up with 1,000 different trade scenarios or this and that, but if he trades anything to rebuild a little bit, he's probably in the middle. He's probably in the middle of the pack with the rest of the other 10 guys. So he'll be one he'll be number 7 of the six guys in the middle of the pack at that point in time, minus 3. Like, good. It is a good spot for him to be. He's got so many base, grassroots players that are so good on his team. So he could trade a couple guys away. Like I said before, when you win, you get 7.5 years paid for. So he's got plenty of time to rebuild, and he does have some good players to rebuild around too. So I do like this guy's team a lot. I'm super happy that because the first couple of years, this is I think year 6 of this league now. The first 2 years of this league, he drafted and he traded everything away for picks, and then he traded those picks away for more picks, and then he started drafting and he traded for Justin Jefferson, he traded for CeeDee Lamb, he traded for a couple other good players too, and he got to the pinnacle, he won, but now it's like, man, it's what do you do now? He's in that middle of the road thing where nobody wants to be, so you just got to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, if he's in top 4, I mean, if I'm top 4, and like you said, you explained that there's 4 teams and everybody else. I'm in a couple of leagues like that. I'm similar team to like this. I probably don't have as good a young assets as him, but I have a lot of guys on that older side. But I'm probably a top 4 team, and so many people have already gone into rebuild mode. I'm like, I don't know if I can. I'm too behind in the rebuild mode. So if you're top 4 again with injuries and the crazy things that can happen in scoring in the playoffs, if you think you got a top 4 team, then I think you always got to go for it, because you just never know when you're going to have that monster game or somebody's going to have a bad week. I don't know how many times in leagues I had the best team all year and my team just flamed out in the semifinals and I had my worst week of the year. So that happens. So you can get those upsets. If you're a top 4, you just got to keep fighting through and go for it, because it is at that point a coin flip when you get the playoffs on matchups and who's playing and who's hurt and who's sitting. So if you're in that top 4, you just got to keep hammering home and hope you get that second back-to-back win.
Yeah, I think it's one of the frustrating things I think about fantasy, but it is what it is. But honestly, you just have to get into the playoffs, because once you get in the playoffs, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, week 15, 16, 17 is not different than any other week. It just so happens it's later on in the year. So you don't know what's going to happen. So as long as you're in the dance, you can possibly win. There's going to be different variables like injuries and guys sitting or whatever, that's gonna change the outcome. I would say this: if you were gonna say, if this guy was like really like dead set, like I want to reset, the one guy I think I'd be most interested in just saying, you know what, let me reset, especially because it's a super flex league, would be Burrow. You already have Russell Wilson and Tua. Do you trade Burrow away, possibly get either maybe like a Bijan or like 102, 103? You could start over with a CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, but also get way more on top of it. You're going to get a lot for Burrow. So if you really wanted to do something like that, I think he'd probably be the one guy I'd probably hit the kind of see from a reset standpoint. I wouldn't necessarily do that. But if you really, really wanted to, I think that would be the person I would target.
Burrow's on that situation now where he's about to renegotiate a 5 or 10 year contract kind of thing. And just to be available and have that guaranteed of having somebody locked in actual money on an NFL team where he's not going anywhere, those are one of the kind of like, that's the blueprint I use for who I want on my team long term, because they're not going anywhere. I don't know what's going to happen with Tua. I know Russ is lacking a long-term contract, but if he sucks again this year, I mean, at some point in time, they're just going to say, we got to eat this money, because Burrow has looked great. He has looked great, but Russ has not. And they got to make a move. They gave a lot up for him, but I think if Burrow's going to keep moving forward, not that I like Burrow. I'm not a Burrow fan. I don't hate him. But I'm not a humongous Burrow fan. I think he's a little bit overrated. But, man, I would probably want to get rid of Russ. I understand what you're saying. For the price, for what you can get for Burrow, that's the difference. You're going to be able to get a wheelbarrow compared to a 5-gallon bucket. That's the difference in what you're going to get back. So I do get it. But quarterbacks are so hard to hit on, man. It's so hard to get a good quarterback in your team.
Oh, I'm with you. And that's where I think he could maximize his value the most with Burrow, and hopefully – he hits on the right rookie quarterback. Usually at least one quarterback per draft is going to hit. So if he likes Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson and they hit, they might never be up to the caliber of Burrow. But that to me is probably the most appealing. I can't imagine trading Justin Jefferson right now. He's just, no player should be untouchable, but I mean, that guy's just elite.
I traded Justin Jefferson away to get this is 2 years ago, I traded Justin Jefferson away after we had a good rookie season. I'm like, quarterback, my receivers are a dime a dozen. I can get rid of them and get something else. And I did get Justin Fields and Tua Tagovailoa for him, but then Justin Fields sucks for 2 years. Tua's like, had a shitty year and a half, and he kept getting hurt. I'm like, I traded them guys away for garbage, and my team I made so many bad moves as an owner in a dynasty league. I'm like, hey, this Joe Mason guy's gonna suck. This Dalvin Cook guy, man, he's getting old too. This everything. I traded all my shit away, and that's like, man, I'm in purgatory hell right now. I'm trading for draft picks. I'm becoming a guy I never wanted to be, but it is what it is. It's fun having different positions in every league. Being the guy at the top of the mountain, being the guy in the middle, and being the guy at the bottom, because it makes every league so much more fun. But sometimes when you're in these leagues and you got 3 or 4 just powerhouse stallion, workhorse teams that are diesel engines at the top, finally 2 well-oiled machines, and you're at the bottom looking up like, fuck, man, I'm never going to be that guy. It just sucks being here. It is what it is, but I don't know. But I don't know. That's it, guys. I appreciate you guys looking out for these or being on the show today. Thanks for your time. We try to keep it to an hour, but we're at an hour and 40 minutes, so that that's what happens. So I have fun. There's no time limit on these shows. We just have a good time. So I just wanted to say thank you. Steve, why don't you let us know where we can find you at?
Yeah, so again, you can follow me at Steve_FOP for my personal Twitter. Also, would really appreciate if you follow us at Front Office Pros. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Front Office Pros. We try to do at least several videos on a weekly basis.
JT?
Yeah, you can find me at JT Orange on Twitter. Also, you can find my IDP rankings on DLF. You can jump on there and see all my full IDP rankings. They'll be updated again here after the draft, so looking forward to that as well. Also, you can find me writing IDP articles and everything else, Devi, C2C, all that stuff for DLF as well. Also, you can find me at Fantasy Pros. We're over there doing some stuff. So I'm in Dynasty Pros, I'm just kind of all over the place doing a little bit of things for everybody. So hit me up on any of those formats.
I'm John McGlynn at John McGlynn 75, and I had a great, awesome trip planned with me and JT to go to Kansas City to watch the NFL draft. And having 4 kids is awesome, but when one of them says, "Hey, Dad, just so you know, on April 29th, I have my senior prom, and you got to be there," kind of thing. It's like, oh. Thanks for the I always thought it was a different date. Like, I was never told a date, and my daughter told me this after I already made plans with JT to go to Kansas City, watch draft. We'll see where we're going to be roommates at the expo, stuff like that kind of thing. So,
I'm going to the expo too, first time.
It's nice. A blast. Last 2 years have been awesome. I've been there both years. It's been fantastic. So, yes, all right, we'll get together for a beer. Absolutely, beer and some good times. So, yeah, the more and more people go to the expo, the more and more fun it is. And the more and more you have guests on, talk to good people like yourself, like JT. I'm kind of a jerk sometimes, but whatever, it is what it is. I'm a good guy to hang out with, drink some beers with. So, but I will see you guys at the expo. I will see everybody else around. And this is the Commissioner Evaluation Show.
I repeat, McGlynn is in. Let the fun
Podcast
begin.
and show. Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
John McGlynn.
Bring it, Herms.
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number 1. Hey, McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Have a great week. Have a great year. Love you all.